Hello and welcome to this week's edition of BOI Weekly. I am Olayemi Odunuga. This week on the program, we showcase an indigenous company, Coleman Technical Industries Limited, which has thrived in meeting the electrical needs of commercial, residential, and industrial properties through the manufacturing of electrical wires and cables. Incorporated in 1975, Coleman Technical Industries Limited is described as Africa's foremost cable manufacturing company and has enjoyed the support of the Bank of Industry for over 9 years. Coleman Technical Industries Limited has grown from the production of 1,200 metric tons of copper in 1998, as well as the production of 800 metric tons of aluminium per annum, to become Africa's leading modern cable factory with an installed capacity to produce 15,000 metric tons of copper and 18,000 metric tons of aluminium per annum. Welcome to the program. Our next report takes a look at how Coleman Technical Industries Limited, under the leadership of its managing director, Mr. George Onofuwoko, is creating jobs, boosting foreign exchange earnings, and expanding its horizons through its mission and vision for Nigeria and Africa.
Welcome to Coleman Technical Industries Limited, an indigenous pioneer manufacturer of high voltage, low voltage, fiber optic, marine EPR, and telecommunications cables in Nigeria. In 1998, the company could only process 1,200 metric tons of copper and 800 metric tons of aluminium per annum. But today, it has become one of Africa's largest ultra-modern cable factories with an installed capacity to process 15,000 metric tons of copper and 18,000 metric tons of aluminium per annum. All these are, of course, produced in Nigeria from its factories located on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and the one on the Shagamu-Benin Expressway, all in Ogun State, southwest Nigeria. From a lowly state when it all started, the company has grown to the delight of its customers, both far and near. The managing director of Coleman Technical Industries Limited, Mr. George Onofuwoko, provides an insight into how the company survived through consistency and perseverance.
Coleman Wires and Cable was started by the founder, Ashwajo S.K. Onofuwoko, 47 years ago. It was conceived from the trade that he was doing. He used to be a trader in import and trade in Coleman coolers in those days. And in those days, so he wanted to go into manufacturing because he had some other businesses. And based on that, he set up Coleman Technical Industries to try and produce Coleman coolers in those days. But that never really happened. So they continued in business of trade, in different types of trade relating to electronics, electricals, products, including cables. And later down the years, by 1996, we went into the production of cables. So the business has it metamorphosed from one trading business into actual manufacture of one of the products it was trading, which was in those days cables and wires. I think the major difference between what they started with, what they ended up doing, was having to assess the market at the time and look at the best option, since one did not work. And out of the other electrical products that he did, he then picked this particular one. Now, for me, what we looked at it, because when we came on board, we took it up at the micro stage level, which is when we only had 1 or 2 machines. Now, at that level, you're actually just part of the startup process. And the major difference for us, which is now for Coleman, which has now been in business in manufacturing for more than 25 years, the major difference there is that we were able to see the business from a micro small stage and grow it through the phases. And that I think happened very early in the stage of the conceptualization of the business as a cable business. And that transition was easier because for me, and I think for the team and for those of us in the family, which is myself and my brother that are here, the transition was easier because we took it from micro small and had to build our own vision of what the business should be. And that, I think that's the great part of succession planning. It's where an initial startup, now taken over by a succession plan, now sells their own vision about where they think the business should be. And I have to give it to the founder. It's always very vocal about that if we talk about the story of the cable business, really, you can only say about the children and his son and his sons that have run the business and taken it from a micro small business to where it is today. So I think that would be the foundation we received, and the addition of those foundation is the encouragement to be able to push to any level at which we wanted to. I think the first foundation of that's one, you must have belief in this country. I'm one that's I have 100% belief the opportunities are available in Nigeria. It's seeing beyond. We need to see beyond the gaps, the infrastructural gaps, the risk associated with politics, the risk associated with the business risk. The entirety of this type of business, it cannot just be based on seeing the country based on its risk. It also has to be based on seeing the country based on the opportunities available for you to work and do well. And I think Coleman has done well on the basis of that. We are not the oldest cable company. We saw something different from what others saw in terms of the volume, in terms of the market, in terms of the infrastructural deficiency. And we focused our long-term strategic goal on attaining that level of size, attaining that level of capacity. Yes, take quality out. I believe today we're one of the only industry where everybody says made in Nigeria is the best. Nobody will look for an imported cable. So we give it to the kudos of what everybody has been in the business has done right. But what makes Coleman different is that in terms of our own vision was more long-term thinking. Our own direction of business was more in tune with what is called an indigenous company, which is how do we produce in this country and how do we gain capacity. And part of that foundation was made a success by one simple principle. We never believed Coleman should ever import anything in terms of products we make. So if I cannot in turn make a product that you've asked me for, I have to be forced to look at how do I create a production plan for it locally. That really was our own catalyst. Coleman has never in his history imported 1 meter of cable. So if we have not imported 1 meter of cable and we've made those cables, eventually what then happened is the more you went into cables that people asked for, that nobody made, the more unique it looked as if you are, the more capacity you grow, the more barriers you broke down. And that principle is still with us today. We call it the Coleman Challenge. The Coleman Challenge is, as long as it's a cable that can be made anywhere in the world, Coleman would attempt to put it as an in-country production. And that meant you were going to grow beyond anybody else. And that meant you were going to grow capacity beyond anybody else. But we're not just doing it because we're passionate about Nigeria. We're doing it because we know it can sustain whatever business model we have, which means we have to be able to keep everybody that we're employing at work.
The Bank of Industry's almost 10-year support for Coleman Technical Industries Limited dates back to 2013, and all thanks to the federal government of Nigeria for supporting Nigeria's industrial sector through the Bank of Industry.
Our relationship with the Bank of Industry is almost 10 years. It's almost gone a decade. We tried earlier. I think we didn't understand how to approach it. And when we finally got through Then I think our first relationship started through the assistance of the Bank of Industry Trade and Investment. They actually had a private arm that consults, and then which was then run by Mrs. Obaseke, who is now the First Lady of Edo State. We were one of our clients, so she was the MD of Bank of Industry Trade and Investment, or Investment Trust. Investment Trust. And they assisted us. We tried, we didn't understand how to work with the Bank of Industry. And they were the actual catalyst to the breaking the ground within us and the bigger group as a whole. And after our first transaction, which was, I think our first transaction was for the low voltage line in Arepotu and part of the high voltage line, which they supported, successfully paid back. And over the years, well, for every new idea that we had, I think we've done the first, second, third, I think we're on the fourth transaction of business with Bank of Industry, and I think we're pushing in for the fifth one. I am a Bank of Industry advocate, and everybody says, why? I said, look, it is only the Bank of Industry that is long-term thinking. Unfortunately, the structure of our commercial banks are very medium-term thinking. I won't say short-term, it's medium-term. Medium-term is 3 years, 5 years. And then you're too exposed to the risk of the exchange rate. You're too exposed to majorly the risk of interest rate with them. Now, the Bank of Industry is very stable with interest rate. Yes, it's an intervention, but I've argued this with the commercial bank 100 times over. It is there to push industry. It is there to push what you would not do. Why have we not seen it as a supporter of growth? And I think they're the best supporter. They're the best development bank we have, because today, in 10 years of Bank of Industry support, for a business that really grew over the last 15 years, 10 years of it with Bank of Industry has changed the whole dynamics. We've grown, I'll say we leaped 20 years forward with 10 years. And you cannot have a bank that can leap you to a decade ahead of your direction and to achieve something you have achieved in 2 decades, in 20 years, in 10 years, and not say they're not doing something right. And so for me, the Bank of Industry was a catalyst to my vision, to the vision we had of the business, to the vision the whole team had of where we're going with this company, of what we can achieve in Nigeria. Now, the Bank of Industry has not only turned itself to a catalyst of a solution for cable, like in the case of Coleman, for the whole country. Now, the Bank of Industry has turned itself to a solution for not only Nigeria, for also exports. And they're not doing for export, they're now solving another country's problem from this place. So there's no way we can say that the Bank of Industry's relationship with Coleman has not been a fantastic catalyst of growth, positivity, job creation, in every way you can say. So for me, I'll tell you that we cannot have a country without a Bank of Industry. Nigeria cannot be a success story without a Bank of Industry. We cannot have growth, astronomical growth in this country, in industry, without the Bank of Industry. We need a Bank of Industry to continue to be sustained. We need them to continue to be recapitalized. We need them to inject a lot more. But they do something right. You see, the difference between today, a Bank of Industry of today, since it was turned into a Bank of Industry, from Mrs. Opota to Mr. Rashida, and to those that to currently Mr. Kayode Piton, the team is very professional. It is, you go to the Bank of Industry, you put the right proposal in place that would create growth, create jobs, create import substitution. Bank of Industry will jump in with you. And as long as you do right, you can always go back. And you then become a success story. Interest rate is fixed for a tenor. Moratorium is given for a period. you cannot get it wrong. I find it hard. I know there's not everybody, there's no way that I can say everybody has gained from the Bank of Industry. But we need to learn how to approach it better. I think today, the Bank of Industry has even done a lot more, because I know people now that go to Bank of Industry as low a loan as 10 million now. And that is a change for the better, because now it's gone to SMEs, it's gone to small scale, it's going to the medium scale, it's going to the large companies like ours, which authoritatively was a small micro business at a point in time, but has been able to move from small to medium to a very large scale business today, all on the scale of relationship with Bank of Industry. So we can look at what we took 10 years ago in terms of finance. If we look at what we are asking for today in terms of finance, it's a massive gap. And so if in 10 years you've been able to grow your business exponentially in terms of growth rates, from having a good relationship with the Bank of Industry because there were government incentive-based development loans. Yes, we're not saying the central bank did not play its own part, also even with the Bank of Industry and on its own. But the Bank of Industry has been the major catalyst to our growth in this country. And we need to admit that. If we don't, yes, for me, I would say Bank of Industry, ride on the way you're doing. We would continue to come back. If we have to bully everybody to actually put the guarantees in place. And the argument that sometimes we get this funny argument that the banks feel they're working for peanuts. I've argued that it's wrong. Bank of Industries, yes, takes the support of the banks for the guarantees, but the banks and the commercial banks are the biggest gainers. Apart from the fact that, yes, at the period at which you take your loan, whether for 7 years, whether for 5 years, yes, they gave the loan at a very fixed rate, but the catalyst of growth and business is to the benefit of the commercial bank. The working capital goes to them. The LC transaction charges goes to them. The business dynamics of growth. So if I was doing $1 billion before, now in 7 years I'm doing 10 billion. It's not the Bank of Industry that is gaining from it. It's the commercial banks. And at the end of the day, my argument is the knock-on effect of growth goes back to the commercial bank. At the end of your loan, Bank of Industry walks away. The commercial bank stays with you. And they're still benefiting. Until if you don't need any other loan from them, you don't go back. So who's still benefiting? So on the long-term effect, the biggest benefit is to the commercial bank. And I think the partnership with them and the Bank of Industry is the growth of their bank, is the growth of this country. And I do not see anybody that should argue that fallacy, that it is counterproductive. It has been the best thing that's happened to this country. I think every other country should just go and copy what the Bank of Industry is doing. And for us as Coleman, they're a partner that we'll forever cherish, because our storyline is good today because Bank of Industry has supported every initiative that we've done. If you're a good payer and you pay your loans, we will be very happy to give you another one. Coleman is paying his loans and is clearing off his loan, and we're happy to give another one as long as they're continuing to pay it. So it has nothing to do with special treatment for Coleman. It has to do with the business dynamics and the mere fact that this cash flow is paying back the debts. And that is the process at which Bank of Industry does approve these loans. And as long as they continue to intervene, which is incentivizing, creating incentive on interest and cost, or bearing or starting up or creating expansion, both brown and green, it will make sustainability of those projects easier than we actually working on interest rate that is sometimes not sustainable, but we need to create jobs and we need to create alternatives to import. So for me, I'll say Bank of Industry is a good thing. Bank of Industry would be a benefit to this country, has been, would be, and will continue to be.
The mission of Coleman Technical Industries Limited is to manufacture products that meet national and international standards in quality, performance, reliability, and safety within well-defined timelines and at very competitive prices. That is what we witnessed firsthand when we visited the factory. The success of every business is for it to stand the test of time. It is not easy to come across companies with a lifespan of over 40 years and still waxing strong. Coleman Technical Industries Limited stands tall amongst companies and is producing world-class products that compete favorably with imported ones. Coleman Technical Industries Limited's products are certified locally and internationally by regulatory and monitoring agencies. Coleman is ISO 9001:2015 certified.
Now, for us, look, first and foremost, you need to transfer knowledge. You need to acquire knowledge. You need to pay for acquisition of knowledge. So for us, I'll give an example, which was also at the Bank of India. When we did high voltage in 2014, when we opened our factory, we're the first in Nigeria, we're the fifth in Africa. Still the fifth in Africa till today since 2014. So you can imagine the investment involved at that time. And that was over a $30 million investment that nobody has repeated till date. And when we had a 12-man expatriate team that was in that team that came to start up, because for me, I don't believe you should start wrongly or should take a risk. Get the right people. Now, within the team, over 4 years, there was only one person left out of 12. The rest of those 11 were run by Nigerians till date. Now, even if we look at it, I think even we have to correct ourselves. In terms of percentages, we have over 400 workers. Up until about 2-3 months ago, we had still the same one expatriate. Today, I think because of the fiber optic, which is the same thing for us, when you innovate, when you do something novel like fiber optics today now, yes, nobody has done, so I won't be able to pick expatriates from Nigeria to run those factories. So I need to get the expertise from outside. We expect to have another team of maybe 10 or 12, and we expect over the next 2-3 years to turn it to one again, if not even zero. And it's always happened here, because at a point we had over 400 workers, and we had one expatriate. Today we expect to increase growth because of the new plants we're building to over 1,000 to 2,000 workers. And we still expect maybe we'll have 15 expatriates. So the percentage is even a lot smaller than 98%. You're talking the less than 1%. Now, it has worked because we've had the belief that the Nigerians are capable. Our total management team are Nigerian. So if I'm having a total management team that are Nigerian, both on the engineering and on the management side, that's still Nigerian to the day. Why should we believe any other side cannot have Nigerians running it?
With government policies that continues to support the growth of the business, Coleman Technical Industries Limited promises to continue to provide efficient goods and services for all, just as they target more expansion, job creation, and value addition.
Over the years, the Bank of Industry has continued to provide interventions for industries to thrive. These interventions focus on men, women, and youths and are making meaningful impact on the nation's socio-economic development. So if you are an entrepreneur in need of support to grow your business, kindly visit any of the branches of the bank closest to you or log on to their website at boi.ng. You can also follow the bank on all social media platforms as displayed on your screen. This is where we draw the curtain on this week's edition of BOI Weekly. I am Olayemi Odunuga. Thank you for watching.